afternoon. Welcome to a new edition of WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer newspaper. And WIN TV, Washington Informer. If you all didn't get that, that's because you haven't been watching the show. But that's where we get that WIN TV from. And, Sherry and I've talked about this. I'm going into all of this before we actually get into the subject of the show. But we are going to be coming up with a name just for this program. And so if you have any recommendations, good ones, send them to us at news at washingtoninformer.com. This is our way of actually sharing the stories behind the stories that we cover in the Washington Informer and other events that are happening in the DMV or elsewhere that we think our viewers and readers of our publication would like to know more about. So we're looking for a name for the show. So send us your recommendations at news at washingtoninformer.com, because this is our channel, our WIN TV channel, and we want to begin to make sure that our viewers actually subscribe to the channel. We've got some good numbers right now. I think we're probably at about close to 700 subscribers. We're trying to reach that 1,000 mark. So your participation and engagement always means so much to us, and it will help us to reach our goal. I hope you've picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. We are on newsstands again this week. And I'm really happy to say, for those of you all who are living in the Charles County area, the Washington Informer is even on newsstands in Charles County. So you can find us in the DMV. We're at about 600 locations where you can pick up the free edition of the Washington Informer on newsstands. And but you can also read us online at www.washingtoninformer.com. Again, washingtoninformer.com is where you can read the digital edition. And while you're there, I've got so many asks today. Sign up and become a subscriber. It's free, of the digital edition of Washington Informer, which will come to you every week, as well as other important news, announcements, and invitations, special invitations to events that are happening in the DMV that we are asked to share with our viewers and our readers. So you don't want to miss out. You want to get all of that at washingtoninformer.com. Speaking of locations too, we are so excited. We're going to talk about this in an upcoming show, because now, we have a store at Dulles Airport called, it's called Washington Informer. It's a newsstand at Dulles Airport. And I used to feel really bad, Sherry, because, we were like at international arrivals way down at the end. I mean, there's really no reason for people to go down there, but now there is, because we are right next to the entrance of the Metro. And now that the Metro goes from DC to Dulles Airport, as you're coming in or going out, you can go into the store and pick up a copy of the Washington Informer and read it as you're catching the Metro back home, and see what you've missed, or take it with you so you can share it with a friend. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Please do us a favor and share this broadcast with your social media audience, and follow us on all of the social media channels. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can find us in all of those places. So we certainly hope that you will actually subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share the program on the social media channels. Our guests today include Anthony Hall, who's the Director of Outreach and Education at the DC Department of Behavioral Health, who's joining us to talk about some of the services and programs that DBH is offering, and looking forward to that conversation, as well as talking to Melissa Bird, the Medicaid Director for the DC Department of Healthcare Finances, who's with us to provide an update on Medicaid Renewal. We got to get you all out there to help us to get this message out about Medicaid Renewal. We are a community that actually is either the highest or the lowest in whatever areas in which people need to address healthcare issues. And we certainly don't want folks to lose their Medicaid insurance. So we're going to talk about that today, and hopefully give you the information that you need to get the word out on this timely and important topic. And lastly, despite the assault and affirmative action, we are so excited to have Brent Swinton with us, who is the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Bowie State University. And he's got some great news. We're going to celebrate the culmination of the most successful fundraising campaign and the fact that Bowie has reached its goal in the history of the institution. They're not done yet, but we've got some good news to hear from Brent. So I'm so glad that he's going to be with us. So before we bring on our guests, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The alarming rates of crime across the city have led politicians in the nation's capital to push an emergency public safety bill. The legislation expected to pass on Tuesday aims to tackle the rising incidence of crime and restore a sense of security to the community. Metropolitan Police Department statistics revealed distressing figures as of Monday, July 10th, with homicides up 17% as compared to last year, while reported robberies have skyrocketed by 52% and motor vehicle thefts have surged by a staggering 117%. The emergency bill proposes several key changes to the existing laws. Notably, it seeks to remove requirements for individuals to be held for dangerous crimes such as carjacking, kidnapping, and felony assault with weapons like knives, and for juveniles to be detained regardless of whether they are armed but suspected of committing a dangerous offense. Councilmember Brooke Pinto, who chairs the Council's Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, said, quote, "We are in a state of emergency right now. And like any emergency, we have to act like it, and we have to act urgently as a government to address the problem that we are seeing." A driver who fled a traffic stop near the National Mall in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday fatally struck a pedestrian remains at large, according to officials. The driver was in a 2006 blue Honda Accord when uniformed Secret Service officers tried to stop the car at the intersection of 17th Street Northwest and Constitution Ave shortly before 1:30 p.m. The driver, who has not been identified, initially appeared to stop, but then fled southbound. The driver continued through a red light, striking multiple people at a crosswalk. Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said in a statement on Twitter, quote, "Police are working to locate the suspect, and our deepest condolences go to the victim's family. One of the pedestrians was hospitalized and then died later, and that person is still yet to be identified." The Food and Drug Administration on Thursday approved the oral contraceptive O-pill for over-the-counter sales, making it the first hormonal contraceptive pill available in the U.S. without a prescription. The approval is a major win for medical groups, including the American Medical Association and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which have been pushing for years for an over-the-counter birth control pill. It also comes amid legal battles over women's reproductive rights. The medication is expected to be available at drugstores, convenience stores, grocery stores, and online, according to the FDA. However, people who want to grab the medication off of store shelves will have to wait a little bit longer, however. The maker of O-Pill, Perrigo's HR Pharma, said it doesn't expect that the pill will be available to early 2024.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you so very much for that news update. Now we're going to jump into our program. And first of all, before we do that, I want to thank all of you all who have joined us today. We are really excited to have you with us, and we hope that you will continue to tell folks to watch us here at WIN TV on YouTube. This segment we're going into now is sponsored by the DC Department of Behavioral Health. And I'm really, really excited to have with us Anthony Hall, who is the Director of Outreach and Education at the Department of Behavioral Health. Anthony, welcome to WIN TV.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here.
So, one of the things I have to start off with, I know we have our questions that we need to go through, but we talked about this a little bit earlier. There's a change in the city, right? And the mayor and others have talked about the fact that the city doesn't necessarily want MPD to be the first responders to people who are in a mental health crisis. And it seems as though you all at DBH are prepared to meet that call. So tell us a little bit about your job and why this outreach and education about what you all are doing is so important and what folks need to know about it.
Sure. Again, I really do appreciate the opportunity. So in the public engagement section of the agency, we really are focused on being able to connect with the residents and explain what the available resources are, promoting access, and working to identify opportunities where the department can hear more about the needs of the unique communities that exist within the district, as well as sharing the activities that are happening within the department to explain more about what it is that we do and how we can be of benefit and of service. So we do that in a number of different ways. A lot of it from this part of the agency comes with providing information about mental health and wellness, explaining the spectrum of services that exist here within the district, and being able to get the word out. We're really fortunate that we have such a robust and a constantly evolving system of care. And so we are committed to being a direct arm explaining what it means to receive behavioral health services in the community, especially in the district, and also what individuals can expect from those services.
You talked about actually meeting in the community and hearing what the needs are. Can you share with us what people are saying their needs are, particularly the ones that DBH can address?
Sure. There's quite the spectrum of needs that fall under the umbrella of behavioral health. So we hear caregivers who are talking about being fatigued or wanting to understand more about what's going on with their loved ones. We hear from parents who want a greater understanding of how to talk to their children about the changes that they're witnessing, or even explaining the concept of trauma. It's very unfortunate that we are seeing so many instances of gun violence in the city, but explaining, people are talking about the need to have a better understanding of how to cope with the emotions that they are experiencing. So a lot of the work that's happening right now is communities asking, where can they receive these things, and what do they look like? What should they look like? In addition to some of the needs around substance use disorder, we have a lot of vulnerable individuals who communities are interested in finding out how can they support their neighbors, what are some of the resources, how can we engage in a collaborative effort to provide more opportunities for individuals to receive services if they're interested and ready for it.
So I know that you all have this is my word, goo-gobs, but you all have a lot of services that you offer, and that's why I'm glad you selected Win TV as a place to really promote some of the programs that you have that meet those needs. If you could tell us maybe one or two of the most requested services that you provide and how people were actually able to access those services.
Sure. So the first one that I would talk about would be our mental health hotline, and they can be accessed at 1-888-793-4357. That is a 24/7 direct care call center where any individual can call in to find out about resources, to receive a session with a clinician. You get up to 6 free sessions with a clinician. You can also learn about getting linked to one of our core service agencies, parts of our department, the programs that we oversee. That is a critical resource because, as we've seen, there's been a growth in terms of people's willingness to access care, especially out of the pandemic.
Anthony, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly because because it's critical, we want to make sure that we put this number up so that our viewers can get that. So can you repeat that number, please?
Sure. It's 1-888-793-4357.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can dial 988, which is the national crisis hotline, but 1-888-793-4357.
Okay, and before I interrupted you, you were saying that some of the things that you've seen and why this is so important.
Sure, we've seen a growth of individuals being willing to reach out for services and for care, especially coming through the pandemic. I think that we are fortunate that having this robust service system has also helped to start to address some of the issues of stigma that we have in the communities regarding accessing behavioral health services. So now there's the opportunity to, when an individual is ready, be able to reach out, hear more about what's available, and really get that support. So also not being so rigid, not so prescriptive that you can only find out between the hours of X and X. Whenever you're ready, the service is there for you. And so that's where the mental health hotline, I think, is one of the more critical resources that the department operates.
And as you said earlier, I know you're moving on to the other one too, but I just want to make sure that people understand that not only can, let's say, I as the individual access that hotline if I realize I personally need help, but what about if there's a loved one or a neighbor, or I mean, how is that line available to them, or is there any other resources? Because we see a lot happening in our communities, and we recognize, as the mayor and others have said, This is not a call for the police. This is call for, mental health services. So is that line available to them as well?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Stakeholders, caregivers, they can absolutely reach out, find out about information and resources that might be available to speak with their loved one, to speak with that neighbor, that friend about. And then, kind of to that point, we also have our community response team, which is the 24/7 direct response arm of the department. So that is a group of clinicians, peer certified peer specialists, and community behavioral health specialists who operate in that boots on the ground capacity. So they are, when contacted, going out and functioning as civilian mobile responders. They will come and engage the individual who might be experiencing a crisis. But even before we get to the place of a person being in what we consider an acute crisis, they are able to come out, talk about resources, and help shepherd folks through some of the enrollment processes, help provide that warm handoff, that direct touch to individuals who might need that care and assistance to move through the steps of engaging with the larger service system. So they are an invaluable resource here in the district, and we're really proud to have them.
Mental health, has become such a major issue, not only here in Washington, D.C., but all over the country. I mean, we're hearing stories on stories about the mental health crises, as you mentioned, that's happening throughout our communities. And, but, from your observation, that's what I want to know really is what has been your observation? I mean, I know it's some that may be related to drug issues, depression, what have you. I mean, because how do we serve this community better?
I think I think opportunity exists by virtue of making it known that we do have the resources available. One of the things that we are really fortunate to have is a program like the DBH Learning Institute, where anyone can log in, find out about available classes that might be related to behavioral health, because knowledge truly is power. The term behavioral health gets used often, and it's a massive umbrella that talks about health and wellness. It talks about diagnostic presentations. It talks about a whole human. And so, as a community, what we can do better and where we can really expand that is ensuring that we all know that we have a baseline understanding of what mental health and wellness means, what it means to recognize that you are becoming stressed and might need some additional assistance, and learning that there are resources. Yeah, I know that you heard our director say people are often, if you break a leg, folks are very comfortable going to the doctor, but folks aren't necessarily as familiar with where do I go or what assistance do I seek out when I'm not feeling well. And so being able to help better understand where you can get these services and supports and that they exist. Sometimes the easiest way to mitigate a crisis is to just explain that resources are there whenever you're ready for them. And so that's what's really important for us right now, to expand and ensure that people are aware of.
Are you all equipped with enough staff yourselves and resources to meet the needs of Washingtonians? I know that, everybody's talking about jobs and opportunities, but, are you staffed up, or do you have opportunities for folks who might be in the, um, in that area or pursuing that type of a career? Are there opportunities there for folks to come and support what you're doing?
Oh, there are absolutely opportunities for individuals who want to come and provide service. As gets talked about quite often, there's a national workforce shortage in the behavioral health space. And so that's where we are excited to see some of the university partnerships that are coming online. And we always want to see continued growth in the space of having available practitioners and clinicians who want to do the work and be of service.
Wonderful. And I also want to ask about the engagement, because I'm sure you and your team probably go out to community meetings and other places to share more about to do that in public engagement. Talk about that, how folks can get you to come and tell your story.
Sure. So we are happy to come and participate at any sort of event that's available that allows us access to the community. So we will come and participate at tabling events, present at ANC meetings. We do community canvassing. So with a lot of the stakeholders and members of the community will call us out and just tell us a bit about what they are observing, have us walk through communities with them. And so those are all wonderful opportunities. We often also get tagged and asked to come and participate in community education. So talking about things like naloxone and how to get training for the utilization of that life-saving drug, or understanding some of the signs and symptoms of mental illness and who to access. So we are really kind of wide open to what we will come out and participate in, because we view it all as creating opportunity. And we also get to hear from the community about what their observations are and what their experiences have been, so that we can continue to improve upon the way that we provide services in the district.
So I want to go a little deeper on you, Anthony. I mean, tell us your background and how did you end up in this mental health space?
So if I am honest about it, I'm the son of a social worker, and my father was with the National Urban League. So this was written in the stars before I ever showed up. I'm from here, and so I have always worked in behavioral health like my entire adult life. So as soon as I graduated from undergrad, I came up here, finished my master's. I began working at one of our core service agencies, so providing direct care to some of the most vulnerable individuals, and kind of just continued along in that space, because I really do view it as an opportunity to provide a voice and provide respectful services to a group that we know historically has been marginalized, and we recognize that we continue to need to improve upon that. And then just to show love to the community that I grew up in, to be a part of the change that we all want to see here.
Wonderful. And I guess in closing, you know, I know, or I'd assume that the agency has a mission, you know, a mission statement or something that you all would love to see happen for DC and its residents, and how that fits even with your own personal mission. But what is it that, as it relates to mental health, you know, we all should be striving for in the District of Columbia?
That's such a big question. I think that what we would want to strive for is education, because the more we understand about ourselves, about our neighbors, about who we are and how we are feeling, the better equipped we are to take steps towards continuing our process of wellness and healing. And that's across the board. Like, we all get better when we all know that we can get better.
Wow, amazing. Anthony Hall, thank you so very much, Public Engagement Director for the DC Department of Behavioral Health. We appreciate your sponsorship of this segment, but we know you're going to be coming back with more information as we go forward. This is much needed information, and we're just happy that you're here. We want to put both of those numbers up one more time, Chevry, and if you could just tell us, again, that's the National Crisis Hotline, and people can call that. Tell us again.
Yep. Or they can call our mental health hotline at 1-888-793-4357.
Okay. All right. And that's the number to call, either if you need services or if you know someone who you think is in need of services, correct?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you the next time.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. Speaking of needs, I am thrilled to bring Melissa Bird on, who is the Medicaid Director for the DC Department of Healthcare Finance. You know, she was here earlier this year telling us about the requirement to recertify for Medicaid. You're on a mission also to achieve some goals, and that is to get everybody who's in need of Medicaid to recertify, so that no one's going without medical insurance. Melissa, thank you so very much for being with us again.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for having me back to continue to talk about what you said so well, the importance of making sure that folks who are eligible for the Medicaid program continue their coverage. I think what Anthony was talking about, the importance of, you know, your behavioral health, your physical health, your whole body, and Medicaid, when you have that coverage, just gets you that closer to being able to access the services you need with no cost. So it's such an important time for folks to be aware of what's going on with Medicaid renewals.
And if you can give us sort of some background, how did we get here? And is this something that people have had to do before, or is this something new, this whole recertification process?
Sure. So first of all, Medicaid is where folks get their health insurance coverage from the district, and you may get Medicaid because of your income or your age or because of a certain health condition. And typically, when you're in the Medicaid program, you do recertify your eligibility, that you still meet all the rules or requirements for the health insurance coverage on an annual basis. What changed, along with everything else back in March 2020, is a public health emergency. And at that time, rules changed to allow us to have what we call continuous coverage. And so what it meant is that folks didn't have to renew their Medicaid eligibility. It just stayed as it was throughout the public health emergency. And this was really so important because Medicaid provides access to COVID testing, COVID treatment, vaccines, et cetera. And, during that public health emergency, we didn't want anyone to be concerned about not being able to get those things. But as you know, and everyone knows where it kind of feels back to normal. I know the traffic is more, you see a lot more people out on the mall and going to museums and so forth. And that means, things have changed for Medicaid, and we're going back to that annual recertification or confirming your eligibility for the Medicaid program. And that kicked off in April. It's also, I think, really important for folks to understand it's not just happening in DC, it's happening all across the nation. And so everyone who's in Medicaid, whatever state you're in Virginia or Maryland, is renewing their coverage. And so for the first time after that 3-year pause, it's time for folks to, don't wait to update their contact information, but between April of this year and really for the next 14 months, folks will be getting those renewal notices that saying, hey, it's time to act now to stay covered.
And I know that this is a massive initiative nationwide, especially here in the District of Columbia, because you're trying to recertify how many people?
We have our Medicaid enrollment grew 20% during the public health emergency. So we had about 250,000 residents in the program. And when we started renewals back in April, it was closer to 305,000 of our residents. So that is almost half of all district residents. But what's really great about that is that it means that if you're hearing this message today, you can spread the word too. And if you're talking about Medicaid renewals, there's a good chance that you're talking to someone who has Medicaid coverage and needs to make sure that they know what's coming up for them.
And what is the deadline? I mean, by which folks need to recertify?
It's person specific. So it just depends originally on the month that you enrolled in the Medicaid program. If you have a household, so maybe you have parents and kids all in a household, we try to have that same recertification date. So it's, some folks renewed back in May. Some folks won't have to renew until next month, and others won't have to renew until February. So it really is impacting people every month. If folks aren't sure when their time is coming, you can go ahead and go online to our new online portal so that you can actually manage your benefits. This is something new since the pandemic, actually. So you can go to districtdirect.dc.gov. You can create your account. If you've been on Medicaid before, you can connect your account, and then you can kind of keep up to date and know what to expect and when. And then if, going online is not your thing, you can call us at 202-727-5535 and talk to one of our customer service reps and ask about hey, do I need to do anything right now? And if you haven't gotten that renewal notice in the mail, folks will get a renewal notice either 60 or 90 days before their coverage is supposed to end. You can go ahead and update your contact information. Folks have moved in the past 3 years. I know I have. I know I'm not alone on that one. But you don't always remember to update everybody that needs to know about your address. So you can go ahead and update that contact information and then wait to get the mail. You'll know it's Medicaid renewal time when you get an envelope with a green stripe under the return address. And when you get that, just act as soon as possible and get that information back to us so your coverage can stay as it is.
And for those individuals that need that a little bit of help and decide to call that number, are there hours in which they need to call, or is it a 24-hour?
Right now, the hours are mostly, I believe, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then I would also encourage folks, if you are over 65 or so, you can go to one of the senior centers or throughout the district and get some assistance as well. And then you can also, if you're in one of the Medicaid managed care plans, so like AmeriHealth Caritas DC, AmeriGroup DC, MedStar Family Choice, HSCSN, or United Health Plan, they have folks there that you can call and can assist you as well with any questions that you may have.
What happens to those folks who just let the this lapse? That don't, recertify? What will happen with them?
It becomes really person specific, right? So for some folks, their coverage might lapse, and then they might walk up to the pharmacy and try to get their prescription and find out that they need to pay, and normally they don't. And then that'll be the reminder of like, wait a second, maybe I didn't look at the mail. Sometimes I know we have big piles of mail in my house. But that shouldn't stop you. That just means you need to go ahead and, submit that renewal. And if you do that renewal, even after the recertification date, if it's within 90 days, your coverage is going to look like it never lapsed. So that's one thing. For other folks who may just not be eligible for the program anymore, you'll be referred to DC Health Link, where there are options for health insurance coverage, some of which can be subsidized. So you can still have affordable access. And then for others, they may have opportunities through employer-sponsored insurance as well. But for folks, again, if you're in doubt, we say reach out. But also, if you're not sure if you're still eligible, fill out the paperwork, and we'll make sure we can confirm whether you are or not. And that's really important. It's just getting back to us on that.
Well, we're going to be like that broken record and help you to make sure that folks are constantly reminded of the fact that they need to recertify. We know health insurance is too important, not for everyone who has access to it, to have it. So we want to make sure that we do that. And so again, we want to put the numbers up, and if there's like a last message you want to convey. Sure.
Well, I would just encourage folks, if you're not sure how to renew, we ask folks to join us on July 29th at 11 a.m. We're going to have a virtual meeting opportunity to sit down with our staff and ask any questions about Medicaid renewals. And then also our managed care plans are partnering for the My City, My Plan Summer Health Series. So there are a few health fairs coming up starting this Saturday, the 22nd. I just attended one of the fairs at Berry Farms Rec Center a few weeks ago. It's it gets you inside some air conditioning, which is great. And you have options, different snacks, music. You can check out our table. We'll be there. We can answer questions. So really, whatever, if you want to call us, go online, come in person. Hopefully, you'll see us in your neighborhood, and we'll be there to help you out. But again, just act now, stay covered. And if you're not sure about things, in doubt, just reach out to us at that 202-727-5355 number.
I know I said I was going to let you go, but I have one more question for you. And that is, the role of the DC Department of Healthcare Finance. I mean, what is it that you all do there, and how do you help residents of the District of Columbia stay healthy?
Yeah, well, our mission is to make sure we can have affordable health care available to district residents that can help improve their health outcomes. And so our role here at the Department of Healthcare Finance, we are the agency responsible for administering all of the district's public health insurance programs. So that's Medicaid, the Alliance Healthcare Program, and the Immigrant Children's Program. And all three of those programs provide access to health insurance coverage, which we know is really such the kind of the first step to really making sure you get that access to your providers, to your doctors, to hospital services, and so forth. So it really is trying to make sure that if you need some support in your healthcare, it's extraordinarily expensive, and if you just don't have those extra dollars for it, we can step in and help you out.
And also, Melissa, you mentioned earlier about seniors, but believe it or not, within a few weeks, they're going to be talking about going back to school. And I'm sure that children are covered by Medicaid as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Children and parents, especially pregnant women and older folks over 65 with disabilities, were really the original core population of the Medicaid program. So most certainly. And if you have kids or have had kids, you know that usually when they go back to school, you have to make sure they have their vaccinations. You have to have that health form filled out. And if you're on the Medicaid program, we're going to pay for those services for you. So if you do get that health form, it might also be a quick reminder that like, oh, let's make sure I still have my coverage. Do I need to do something with it? But yes, a lot of kids in the district have Medicaid, and as back to school comes up, we'll be partnering with our sister colleagues in DC Public Schools also to make sure we're getting the word out that way too.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to add that in there. So I appreciate you being with us and sharing this information. Like I said, we're going to become the broken record for the recertification initiative to make sure that at least our viewers know about it. But we also appreciate you coming on to remind them about this important step that they have to take in order to maintain their medical insurance coverage.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Just so greatly appreciate it. And it's so important to get this word out, and I appreciate your help in that.
All right, Melissa, thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay. So we've talked about mental health, and we've talked about Medicaid recertification. You know, we want our numbers to show that in a community like the District of Columbia, we can have, we have the services, that people will access the services, and that we are becoming a healthier community. We want to do our part. We hope that each one of you all that's watching this program, if you know people that need these services, either you refer them to WIN TV so that they can watch this video, you refer them to the Washington Informer where they can see the same information that's being made available, or you recorded enough of it so that you can share or be the advocate yourself. We all have to do our part to make this the community that we want it to be. And so I'm just happy that we had these folks on with us today. We're going to have them back. And this is the kind of programming you get here at WIN TV. So thank you for joining us. Now, we got some exciting news, I think. Like I said, despite the assault on affirmative action, Bowie State University has reached its goal, its fundraising goal. And I'm going to let Brent Swinton, who is the Vice President for Institutional Advancement, actually tell the story, because I know, look at that smile. I know that you can tell it better than I can, and it's really exciting. So welcome to WIN TV, Brent, and congratulations, Bowie State University. Let folks know why I'm congratulating you.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks for having us on the show and an opportunity to spread the good news about what's happening at the Bowie State University. So as you mentioned, we're in a campaign, and our campaign is called the Campaign for Excellence. And we are 2.5 years ahead of schedule and have already reached the initial campaign goal of $50 million.
Wow.
It has been an incredible run. And it speaks to all of the excellence that's happening on campus, the great leadership, the wonderful students, the caring faculty and staff, and more importantly, the broad partnerships that have now included not just regional and national partners, but even international investors in Bowie State University.
Well, I know you, I don't know if you came in to Bowie with the magic wand, but it looks like you must have done something in addition to the leadership that you're talking about there. Your president, help me out with your
Dr. Aminta Bro.
Right, exactly. Who there's a lot of fanfare when she was named president, and the university is a beautiful, beautiful campus. But tell us, why is this fundraising goal so important, and how did you get there so quickly?
Well, you know what? Let me start, Denise, with how did we get there? You just mentioned Dr. Bro, and everything starts with the top. So the leadership has been very intentional about lifting up the brand of Bowie State University. And Dr. Bro has assembled a team that works along with me, her cabinet, and we have just been very intentional. I will say that this campaign has been a convergence of preparation. It's been opportunity, and it's also been the intentionality about narrating the value of Maryland's first HBCU. So in my division, we have continually refined our fundraising operations towards best practices. Resources are short, so I'm always using technology and processes and procedures to move us ahead. We use data and we stay abreast on the trends, keeping up with the economy and what donors are doing nationwide. And we have leaned into the opportunities post George Floyd during the pandemic. And even as you just mentioned, with the current news coming out of the Supreme Court, we lean into those narratives and have deep conversations, not just transactional engagement, but deep conversations with partners who are concerned and who want to invest in an institution that is moving the needle for education. So even though the pandemic was awful, during that period, we really, really refined how our digital communications allow us to more broadly share the stories of the great educational opportunities at BSU. And we've attracted, as I said, international and national partners. We currently have students who are coming to us from 40 states and countries around the world. Our applications are off the chain. And I think a lot of this has to do not only with the campaign, but with the general uplift of the institution under Dr. Bro's leadership.
And we also have to acknowledge the fact, Brent, maybe you can tell, if you can, tell us a little bit about this, because if I'm not mistaken, there was a lawsuit filed once upon a time in the state of Maryland where the Black institutions were not getting to equitable funding from the state, and consequently, it impacted what the universities or the HBCUs were able to accomplish, because now you really did have to try to get those dollars that the state wasn't giving to you the way they were giving them to, let's say, the University of Maryland or some of the other universities in the state. So I don't know if you can comment on how that lawsuit, where we are with that, and if you've increased any funding or not, and what people may have known about that really helped to also push the needle for your fundraising goals.
Well, Denise, what you're talking about is a story that is repeated across the country, and that is HBCUs have had a historic disenfranchisement when it comes to receiving the same amount of funding or exposure to capital as their PWI counterparts. So here in Maryland, there was a suit that you mentioned for a long time that was about the duplication of programs, where HBCUs that were state institutions had established programs, and the result of the suit has been a settlement. And I say settlement because, as you might imagine if there had been equitable funding generations ago, where we would be now. So there was a settlement that was enacted under the previous governor, Hogan. That settlement is divided amongst the state's four state HBCU institutions. However, I do want to remind your audience that is state money, and is not part of the campaign. This is the campaign is all about private philanthropy, individuals, corporations, foundations who are investing in the institution. But to your point, this is all about, wherever the source of the funding comes from, trying to get HBCUs to be on a level playing field. And we have a long way to go.
And I've said it, and I'm going to say it forever and ever. It's sad that we lost George Floyd and the way in which we lost him, but his legacy lives on in what has happened around the country with the support that institutions have received in his name in some respects. So this $50 million goal, you have folks that come in that wanted to help you reach that milestone. I don't know if you want to do some shout outs, but I'm open to it.
Well, I would be remiss not to first acknowledge that we received the largest gift in the history of our institution in December of 2000. We were among the few institutions that were included in Mackenzie Scott's donations. And as you said, post George Floyd, And this was like the unicorn gift, in as much as she had a team of researchers who had actually been studying over 2,000 nonprofits and institutions of higher education, and without our knowledge. And that's why not every school, not every HBCU received the gift from Mackenzie Scott. They really did some hardcore research. And we found out afterwards the analytics they were looking at when they decided to, bless us with this donation. So we received $25 million from Mackenzie Scott. And that is so far the largest gift ever, but more than just the gift itself, which we put into our endowment. And I want to talk about endowments in a few minutes. That gift also provided entree into conversations with high net worth individuals and major funders who were previously unacquainted with the story of Bowie State University.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a gift that has equaled the Scott gift yet, but there have been numerous 7-figure gifts, 6-figure gifts, et cetera, that Bowie State has received because we secured that donation from Mackenzie Scott, and it just took us to another level.
So Mackenzie Scott is what she's the ex-wife of was it Jeff Bezos, or
Yes.
I can't remember who she was married to. Yeah, but at any rate, yeah, she, these multi-billionaire people recognized that they needed to do something, and fortunately institutions like Bowie State were not left out. But it's not because of, and partly because of her goodwill, but Bowie State has a story, right? I mean, you're worthy of whatever donations people are giving to you. And what is the Bowie State story that you share with your funders?
Well, it might come as a surprise to some of your viewers, but actually Bowie State University was founded in Baltimore. We are one of the oldest HBCUs in the nation because we were founded in 1865, an important year when it comes to the emancipation of formerly enslaved citizens. So our originating mission was to educate those that the state was not going to educate because of the color of their skin. And we started out as a training ground for teachers. In this region, you can't throw a rock without hitting a teacher or a school administrator who doesn't have at least one degree from Bowie State University. I mean, it's incredible, no matter what school setting that you go into. So that was our initial mission. That was our first major. But now Bowie State has evolved into a full-fledged university with a beautiful campus right off of 197 in Bowie. If you've not turned into the university, you wouldn't know that we are sitting on 340 acres of just, awesome manicured land, a mix of historical markers and new buildings. The sign of a healthy university is construction. And right outside of my window, we are constructing our new arts and humanities, communications and humanities building right off of 197. We have our entrepreneurship living and learning center, which is one of the most unique situations where Bowie State University, along with having a variety of degrees that we offer, we also are implementing entrepreneurial mindset in every major. And we are intentional about having every student cycle through that entrepreneurial living and learning center. So again, the story of Bowie State University does start out of necessity, like most of our HBCUs, but we're not just surviving. We are one of the HBCUs that are actually thriving. And, Mackenzie Scott, her researchers found that value when they selected us to be one of the recipients of her gifts, and other national and international groups like Adobe, Cisco, Diageo, Truist Bank, and even our local partners like BGE, the Stephen Renee Bishotti Foundation, the Franz Merrick Foundation. I mean, we just have so many partners now that see that story and realize, wow, this place is really, it's been doing the right thing despite being under-resourced for all those generations.
Wow. And so let's talk about the endowment.
Sure.
So
Sure.
what, go ahead, tell us
So
that story.
yeah, I'm excited to talk about endowment. This is kind of one of the passions of my life and of my career. An endowment, just like let's say your own annuity or 401k, this is where you're putting money aside, right, for a rainy day. This is the money that keeps you stable no matter what's happening with the economic climate. So universities need endowments so that there's always there's a principal endowment. That's the value that people talk about, and then about 4 or 5% of that principal a year comes back to the university that it could spend. So I just wanted to give you and your audience that background, because when you talk about endowments, you need to understand that for the top 10 HBCUs combined, our endowment probably 2.5 billion. For the top 10 PWIs, their endowments are like 320 billion dollars. So places like Harvard, Stanford, Yale, with these, tremendous multi-billion-dollar endowments, they actually don't even have to charge tuition. Whereas all of our HBCUs, even Howard, which has the largest HBCU endowment, we all have to charge tuition to stay open.
Yeah,
So
you're spending all your money just trying to create
operate.
dorms and to operate, right? Pay
That's right.
teachers and keep the buildings in good shape. So now you can kind of exhale a little bit.
Well, again, it's all about catching up, because
Yeah.
we are facing historic just uneven funding. The endowment for Bowie State, at the beginning of the campaign was $7 million. So again, look at the hundreds and billions of dollars. There's actually about 65 PWIs that have at least $1 billion endowment. Ours was 7 million. So 4% of 7 million, that's some money, but that's not enough to run a university.
Exactly.
Today,
Yeah, I
as I
see.
talk to you now, we are at 40 million in endowment. And that is, over 500% growth. And again, it's thanks to our partners and us telling the story and really educating our alums and our supporters about the importance of giving to endowments. HBCUs have always had a great history of alums who run down to the registrar's office and give $500 for that baby there, or $1,000 for these students here. And certainly Bowie State University is no different. Our alums have always been givers to help people get across that graduation stage. But you have to invest in endowment and grow your endowment to be commensurate with the size of your university as a system of being viable for the next generation. So yes, $40 million, it is so much better than 7 million. And we're so grateful for it. But to be honest, an institution with over 6,300 students like Bowie State, we need to double that. We need to get into the 80s and, hopefully one day $100 million endowment range, just to get back to equitable.
So this whole fundraising campaign, again, you were ahead of yourself in 2 years to raise the 50 million. What's the total amount that the university is trying to raise? And I guess, is it 5 years left on this campaign, or tell
So
us
we've got 3 fiscal years left. So
Okay.
we're about to start, an academic year in the fall. And I'm not announcing a specific amount just yet, because we're going to go back to the lab and work with our partners. It's sort of like going back into the silent phase of the campaign. But we're going to develop a campaign goal that will be suitable for, again, 6,300 students who bring their needs. And again, the population that we serve, the population that HBCUs serve, their number one barrier to college access and barrier to graduation is finances. So much of our thinking is behind how much scholarship money will it take to really make a difference. So we'll be developing some models and making an announcement in the future about future partners that haven't come to fruition just yet, and about an expanded goal. And to be honest, the way that Bowie State is growing, this goal will probably be, it will put us on another level as far as the conversations about HBCU fundraising.
I hear you tiptoeing around it, but number one, I do think probably with this affirmative action decision by the Supreme Court, a lot more folks are going to be knocking on the doors of Bowie State
Absolutely.
for admission and to get into programs that are which have always been quality programs, and that's one
Yeah,
thing we want folks to understand. HBCUs deliver,
they
right?
do.
And Bowie State is among them, and I can say that as a two-time HBCU grad, Howard University, if
Mhm.
you don't mind. I'm sorry, but anyway, uh, not sorry, but But I want to. Okay, follow me here. Brent Swinton, you are a bulldog it when it comes to raising it. Wait a minute, bulldog it. That's your
Yeah,
mascot, Bowie
we're
State
the
Bulldogs.
Bowie State Bulldogs. Look what you did there, Denise.
I did it on purpose, but anyway. Exactly, the Bowie State Bulldogs. And so I'm pretty sure you all are rough and tough and are going to reach this goal. Are you a graduate of Bowie?
So I am a Bowie State University parent, and
Okay.
I am a student. Um,
Okay.
and so I come from an HBCU family, and I actually do have experience working with and attending PWIs. So I've been steeped in HBCUs, higher education, PWIs. I've even worked as a single sex institution. So I kind of have seen it all when it comes to the art and the science of fundraising.
Well, it sounds like they picked the right person for Bowie State, and you're a great spokesperson. And I'm excited. I'm getting ready to come over there and see what kind of program I can get involved in.
Come on.
So I want to appreciate express my appreciation for you joining us. We hope that our viewers will also be among those that will contribute, their money to Bowie, whether they're a graduate or not. It's one of our local HBCUs, so we can always support. Correct?
That is right. I mean, we are the only HBCU in Prince George's County, but like I said, our roots are firmly in Baltimore. So we're one of the pride points of the region, and I'd like to encourage everyone to use the link below. And as I tell our alums, it's not about you emptying out your pockets. If everyone who cares about higher education, educating students of colors, all that's going on now in the world, and as you said, higher education is about to really, really change. If we think that we have, too many applicants to process now, I think it's about to really, really go into overdrive. And if everyone would just give a little bit, then I promise that my team and I, Dr. Bro, and others, we will leverage your participation and get more scholarship money for these deserving students.
Wonderful. Brent Swinton, Vice President for Institutional Advancement, Bowie State University. Thank you so very much for being with us. We wish you much more success.
Thank you, Denise.
All right. Have a good one. All right, so this brings us to the end of this segment or episode of Win TV. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've gained some information that you can use. That's what we're all about, giving you or providing you information that you can use, that you can share, and we hope you'll do all of that. We're going to sign off now. I want you all to have a safe weekend. Watch the heat. Be careful. Don't get overheated. Stay hydrated, drink as much as you can. And I mean water, drink as much water as you can, and stay safe. And we will be back here next week, same time, 12 to 1 at YouTube or your favorite social media channel. And until then, stay well.